Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our discussion about ponds and managing ponds in the landscape, on golf courses, and farms and other places as well. And we're going to focus on one of the products we offer called Aqua-T. My name is Jim Spindler. I'm the Director of Agronomy for Ecological Solutions, the folks who make Hydrotane and BioPro and things like that. And we're happy to be joined together with ArborJet in offering many of our products along with theirs. We will start first with, what causes ponds to look like this? Many of us in our travels, whether we're north, south, east, or west, have seen ponds that look scummy, full of algae, just not clear, and things like that. And what's going on with these ponds that they can't be clear and pristine like we see maybe in the North Woods or in the wilderness? So some of the problems we see that cause these problems are things like the excess algae is caused by an overabundance of nutrients. You got nitrogen, particularly phosphorus and carbon, that really build up in the water. It can be caused by fertilizer runoff from lawns, farms, manure, and other sources. So they build up, and algae and most of these organisms are plants. They need sunlight and food, and nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon in many cases are the food that algae needs to grow. And when you have plenty of it, the algae grows well. You also will have foul odors out there. It's like a septic tank odor, even rotten eggs, and that's caused by anaerobic bacteria. There's not enough oxygen in the water. You've got a lot of sulfur being converted into like sulfur dioxide that smells like that rotten egg, or you've got like a septic tank smell. Then you just got poor water quality. It's cloudy, it's turbid, and it's just, you can't see the bottom. And this is because of things like suspended organics that it can wash in or occur in these waters, and also silt from erosion into these ponds. And these eventually can build up and fill up a pond where it needs to be dredged eventually. And then finally, we see problems with excess sludge that builds up. It can be fish waste, pond from aquatic birds. It can be leaves and clippings being washed and blown into the pond. And it just builds up, and you got this thick layer of sludge at the bottom. And that is a source or a sink of nutrients, again, that goes back to the top of the table there, where you just start releasing so many nutrients that this algae and other things need. So a lot of people first turn to algaecides, and the most common algaecides are things like copper products, either straight copper or chelated coppers. And there are some peroxide products as well, but particularly the copper-based products have some very short-term effects. They're very effective. When you apply them, that algae is killed right away. You'll see it die within 24, 48 hours. But some of the challenges you have is if you want to eat the fish out of the ponds, I've run into a lot of people with ponds, they use copper and they won't eat the fish. They'll catch them and release them, and they're trying to avoid that. You also see the dissolved oxygen in the water decrease because you're killing all this algae. It settles to the bottom, it starts to decay, and that decay process then begins to consume the oxygen in the water. On the long-term effects with using algaecides, you got this accumulation of dead material at the bottom that, as we saw in the previous table, has a sludge buildup, and that creates as it decays, a lot of ammonia and nitrogen being released. That's food, and also has an odor issue. You've got phosphorus being released that the algae love to consume, and they grow and become more popular. And you just increase the whole nutrient loading, as we talked about at the last slide. So while algaecides can be very effective in the short term, in the long term, they're not really so great for the ecology of the water long term. So what do biological products do for ponds in these situations? They start restoring the natural balance between aerobic and anaerobic bacteria, more on the aerobic side. So we reduce odors and things like that. You can reduce or even eliminate eventually algaecide use. You improve water quality. It becomes clearer. You can see to the bottom of the pond. You can allow your algae will disappear. And then it's also protects your wildlife, your fish, and is better for the environment all around, because then you got a pond that's more in ecological balance. So what are the jobs that bacteria do when you start introducing them into a pond situation? What the bacteria do we introduce them and we add them regularly in a program, the excess algae loses its food source. The bacteria starts consuming those nutrients. It breaks down the sludge. It's breaking down the organics that are in solution in the water. And it eliminates that nitrogen, that phosphorus, and that carbon that is needed for algae and moss and other things to grow. So like the nitrogen is converted into nitrogen gas, which goes into the air above the pond, or phosphorus is consumed in the bacteria bodies and used as enzymes, or the carbon is converted to carbon dioxide, and then it goes into the air above the pond. Now on the foul odor side, you start when you get more aerobic bacteria working versus anaerobic bacteria, you're eliminating those sulfur dioxide, that smelly rotten egg stuff. You're getting rid of the septic, like a septic tank odors, the bad odors and things like that. And what really helps with bacteria are things like aeration. If you can put an air stone in the bottom of a pond, bacteria and air stones go together very well. And even to a lesser extent, fountains that still pump air in there. And that helps get more oxygen in that water so that bacteria are breaking down all those organic materials and consuming those nutrients. And then your poor water quality, the bacteria help by they're consuming and they're breaking down all those suspended organics in that water that can really cloud the water bad. And then your excess sludge that's built up from years of leaves, clippings, animal waste, bird waste, things like that. It starts breaking them down, and these bacteria are especially selected. They're indigenous to the region. They're designed to break down lignins, cellulose, and things like that, and will really accelerate the breakdown of sludge in the pond. So what is Aqua-T? It's the Ecologel or BioPro offering for pond bacteria. So it's not an algaecide. It has no algaecides in it. It's a naturally occurring indigenous bacteria that helps a property manager, a golf course superintendent, a homeowner, a farmer. It helps ensure that they're going to have clean and beautiful water with extended use of this product. And there's no side effects that you will experience with algaecides. It's also environmentally friendly, since the bacteria occur naturally in nature. We've selected the bacteria that are most effective at breaking down nutrients, at consuming those nutrients, and breaking down sludge, and all the things we talk about that are good. So these are already occur. We're just getting their numbers higher, so that this is a very environmentally friendly way of managing the ponds. And there's no environmental regulations on this, and homeowners can do it to golf course superintendents. So there's no permits or applicators' licenses required. So with Aqua-T, you'll see this reduction of nutrients. It helps keep the pond clean and healthy looking. You're reducing those noxious fumes. You're getting more air in there. You're getting the reduction of sulfur dioxide. You're getting rid of that septic smells and things like that. This is particularly bad in the heat of the summer. And then it's combination of these bacteria that are selected to help reduce odors and break down all these odor-causing compounds are very effective and work fairly quickly. It's easy to use. You'll see later that it comes in a water-soluble pouch that you just throw these around the perimeter of the pond, and it's very easy to apply, and anyone can do it. It's effective to use, it's easy to apply, and helps maintain that aquatic healthy environment. And it's safe to use. Again, naturally occurring, as I said before, they're environmentally friendly. They are safe for use in recreational ponds, homeowner associations, swimming ponds. We've had a Tennessee park or camp for children use it for years. Irrigation ponds. So again, no licenses or applicator permits required. So what do you need for the bacteria to perform its best? You know, there are certain environmental conditions that are required, things like the proper pH range, water temperatures, nutrient inputs. Is there enough oxygen in the water? Of course, if you use algaecides, they're going to kill the bacteria too. So you got to time this. If you are using algaecides, to wait a certain amount of time, especially like 2 days or more before you start getting into Aqua-T program. And then we got to look at the amount of water turning over in the pond. There are times when a pond is used for irrigation or there's a stream flowing through it. And if it is moving too much water out of the pond, sometimes you carry the bacteria downstream or you put it out with the irrigation. While it doesn't hurt the plants or anything, they're not in the pond doing their job. So we need to consider how often you're turning over the water in that pond. So here's what appears in our literature as far as the conditions needed for proper performance of the Aqua-T. You see the optimum pH is about 7, but it'll work fine from 5 to as high as 9.8. And I've seen it perform well even outside those parameters. You see, we'd like to have at least 2 parts per million of oxygen in that water, even though it can go down to 1 parts per million. If there's no oxygen in the water, then we need to get an air stone or some oxygen getting into that water so the bacteria can survive and perform. You'll see that the optimum water temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit, but it'll work as low as 39 and as high as 145. So it works fine in the Northeast, but also will work fine in the desert, in Arizona, California, things like that. We've had to do very well in places like even the West Texas, where we've had some horse and cattle farms use it. One of the things we say when we start a program is that usually you don't have to start using it until the water temperature reaches about 45 or 50 degrees. That's when the algae starts waking up and becoming more active. So those who live in the northern part of the country or in the transition zone, the center of the country, you don't have to do it all winter. It's just when the pond goes to sleep in the fall, say October, November, you stop applying it. And then when your water temperatures hit 45 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when you start using it. And you're ahead of the game and you should have no problems for that season. The toxic metals, we don't want to see them any more than 2 parts per million. And those include things like copper, like with the algaecides, but can be other metals like zinc and some others. So how does it work? It comes, like I said, in these water-soluble pouches, and we measure the water in ponds, typically in this country, in acre-feet of water. An acre-foot of water is the area by an acre, 43,560 square feet by 1 foot deep. And that's roughly 326,000 gallons of water. So for every unit, every acre-foot, or every 326,000 gallons, we're going to add 3 pounds or 6 of these bags around the perimeter of the pond. And those are on metric. An acre foot equals 1,200 cubic meters of water, if we have anyone in Canada or overseas watching. The maintenance dose, once you get this initial dose in the spring or when you start the program, you put in 1 bag per acre foot every 2 weeks. So it's very easy to use. You go out, you throw these bags into the water, they dissolve. And you'll see that here's the label of the product. You'll see it has those directions down here, initial dose 6 bags per acre foot, maintenance every 2 weeks at 1 acre foot. And then you can see what they look like as we're going out. And there's me throwing them out into a pond. So you have this water-soluble bag. You decide how many go into the pond, and I've got an armful there, you can see there. And just tossing them out. You go equally around the pond and apply these. And you can see in this bottom middle picture that the bag dissolves by itself. It has a bran carrier, sort of like you have in for bran muffins and things. That's the carrier with the bacteria, and then the bran spreads out in the water and disperses the bacteria. It works very effectively. This product's been around since about 1991 or 92, and it's been very effective. And we have customers using it for 20, 30 years or more. So as I said, it's in these water-soluble pouches. They're half a pound a piece. And then they are packed into pails, either a 10-pound pail that has 20 of these pouches or a 25-pound pail that has 50. So what are some of the results? That's always the bottom line. Everyone's from Missouri, the show me state, when it comes to these kinds of products. Here is in New Jersey, where we have 2 ponds on a golf course side by side. The one on the left has been treated with Aqua-T all season long. The one on the right was not. You can see, they have the same water, the same size approximately and all that. And they can tell this is the autumn of the year, and the one on the left treated with Aqua-T looks pristine. Here's down in Florida, in Ocala. This is an old quarry on a golf course, very deep pond. And you can see on the left how it looked before we started. They had this problem every year. They're not allowed to use copper or algaecides in this pond because it's directly connected into the aquifer that people drink out of and things like that. So they can only use natural products like Aqua-T. And they started using the Aqua-T, and within a month or so, you have the clean pond on the right. And they would use it all season long. Now we go overseas to a place like South Korea. Here's another golf course. On the top, you see, again, excess algae accumulating on the water. It's just out of balance and looking poor. So they started an Aqua-T program every 2 weeks, as we recommended. And within a month or two, in the middle of the summer, they have a clean, nice looking water feature that the golfers enjoy. At the same golf course, this is a different look. You can see that turbid water on the left. It's cloudy, it's full of organic, dissolved organic materials. It's just, you can't see the bottom. And after a month or so of being on Aqua-T, you can see the bottom of the pond, you see the rocks underneath the lily pads and things like that. So very effective in these kind of things in a program. This is another golf course in Ocala, Florida, where they gave us an idea of how long it takes for sometimes a program of Aqua-T works. In some places we see that have been on program for years, you'll see results within a week or two. Others have had a long time of algaecide use. The organics have built up. It takes a little bit longer. You can see in this quote that I've highlighted in the letter from the superintendent. He said within the first month, they noticed a slight green hue in the water from the free-floating algae. It had started to die and leave the rocks. And it turned to a light brownish color. And again, the algae growing on the rocks turned to a tan color as it did the dead algae at the bottom. The water continued to change from green hue to a slight tea color over the next couple of months as the algae continued to decay. After about 3 months, as the water became clearer and clearer, it was obvious that much of the tea color was from the dead algae lying on the bottom, which was now beginning to be digested by the Aqua-T. And he also made a note about how he had other ponds. He had several ponds on this property. And the other ponds were treated by an outside maintenance company. And we just treated the pond we talked about with Aqua-T. And the one with the Aqua-T got clear. They didn't have any algae blooms. And the one to treat with Aqua-T, it never looked as good. None of the other ponds looked as good as the pond with Aqua-T. So we can have very quick results, or it may take a while based on how much is built up in these ponds. So as a summary, where can we use Aqua-T? We can use it in areas that have increased organic loadings from grass clippings, from tree leaves, from manure washing in from a farm, from animal waste products, we even see it used in some fish farming. We can use it in ecologically out of balance ponds where you got bad odors, you've got the accumulation of algae and things like that. You can use it where you've got cloudy water based because of the suspended organics. You can use it in areas where you got thick sludge layers at the bottom of these ponds. And it helps extend the life of these ponds. You won't need to dredge them so quickly. And then again, these foul odor ponds that we're seeing. We also, what are the benefits of it? So to review, you know, you're eliminating those excess nutrients that the algae need to grow and other things. It improves the clarity and the quality of your water. It eliminates the odors. It helps reduce sludge that builds up from organic buildup, like you see with algaecides, the dying bacteria and stuff, and manures and leaves and that build up at the bottom. It increases the oxygen in the water, which is always better for fish and other aquatic life. It helps with effluent water. We have people use it in effluent water ponds that are used for irrigation and other things. It's environmentally friendly. There's no permits or licenses required. And it's safe for irrigation ponds, for swim ponds, and for things like at farms and homeowner associations. So it's a great product. We hope you'll try it. Now we're at that point where we have time for some questions. Kara, do we have any come in?
Nothing came in yet, but feel free to put them in the chat and Jim will answer those for you. And if you guys, think of questions after this, Jim has his contact information. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Yes. Yeah, we appreciate your time. I know it's spring and life's busy, so we didn't want to make this too long.
All right, a question did come in. Do you need to use a pond colorant or just the Aqua-T?
You can use a pond colorant, but there's 3 items that really work well together. The Aqua-T, aeration, and a colorant. And as I said earlier in my talk, that algae is a plant, so it needs light, it needs food, the nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus, and it needs water. And one of the things Aqua-T does, it takes away your nutrient sources. What a colorant does, and is very effective at, is taking that light away. So it could be, 1, 2, 3 punch on these kinds of things. So you put oxygen in there so the bacteria perform well. You take away the food, and then you take away the sunlight. It works very well. So we encourage all 3, but Aqua-T can work alone very well if it needs to.
Great. Yeah, I think that answered the other question that came in, was if it was a solo product or can it be used with dyes or other pond products?
The only problem we have, like I said, is if you're using an algaecide, use the algaecide and then wait at least 2 days, and then because that copper will kill the Aqua-T. And once you're on the Aqua-T program, you can't put any other peroxide or copper algaecides out there. It'll kill the bacteria. You'll be starting from beginning again.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions, just pop them in. If not, this will be recorded. We're going to be posting it on our social and on our YouTube, so feel free to share it with anyone that you think it would be beneficial to them. And thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day. And thank you, Jim, for a great presentation.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Oh, one more question.
One more question. Okay.
Starting the program on an every 2-week interval, is this a yearly interval or when starting the season?
It's during the season. You don't have to, if you live in Florida where our waters stay warm all year round, then it's a year-round program. But in most places where you have seasons, you would start the program anywhere from maybe now on. The water needs to be about 45 or 50 degrees to start the program. And that's when you put out the 6 bags per acre foot. And then every 2 weeks after that, through the season, you're putting out 2 bags per acre foot. And you would end in the fall when the waters drop in that 50 to 45 degree temperature. So when the leaves are turning, it's getting cool. And we're talking about water temperature and not air temperature. And sometimes the water temperature lags behind the air temperature warming up. So you got a good thermometer for a spa or something, you measure that. When it hits 45 or 50 degrees, then you can start the program.
Great. Is this safe to use if dogs go in the pond?
Yes. Like I said, the bacteria we selected are naturally occurring. We're just boosting their numbers so they perform faster and they can overcome the thing that the nutrient loading and things like that. It's safe for dogs, for aquatic fowl, geese, ducks, things like that. It's safe for the fish and wildlife as well. And we even have some farmers use it where the dogs, not dogs, but horses and cows go into the ponds to drink and all. So yes, it is safe for dogs.
Great. Being natural, can you still over apply?
Not really. You've got to really put in like a truckload because it has some brand in it. But if you happen to misguess your volume of your water and you over apply, it's not going to be harmful. You're just going to be using more money than you need to. What we sometimes have is people under guess the size of their ponds and maybe under apply it. It takes longer to perform or we don't see. So if you have a way of accurately measuring your depth of your pond in your area, a little geometry, pi r squared for a circle for area, and then the average depth. And we usually don't take in the depth much more than 6 feet in calculating the volume.